So the journey that brought me to coaching is an unusual one because I had a pretty clear career trajectory for myself. I was going to work in the ski industry. I come from a long lineage of men that worked in the ski industry, and I thought that that was my path. And I always saw my dad come home from work really fulfilled, and I love the mountains and I love skiing, and I thought that was mine too. So I followed that journey all the way. I'm from the States originally. I'm from California, and I moved up here to Canada to follow that journey. And I worked as a ski instructor. I worked in ski patrol. And I moved over to HR and was doing leadership and development within the ski resort. And then what changed for me was I had two beautiful children. And through that experience, everything shifted. And I started to question a lot of things about what I wanted for my life and who am I? And here in Canada, you get a full pause from work, a full year. And in that time, I wasn't working and I wasn't doing anything. And I actually got to be. And I get emotional thinking about that time because it was so transformational for me to stop, just stop and be with myself. And I ended up going to watch a coach speak. And I was so inspired by her story. I thought, gosh, how can I work for that woman? She is so amazing. And I had no idea I could be that woman. So what I did is when I left that talk, I started to research coaching. What is this? What is this thing? It feels really abstract and not real. And I ended up finding CTI and getting a few recommendations. And I started the first course, which is fundamentals. And I remember I had a 6-month-old baby. I think I was like breastfeeding underneath the screen because this was over COVID. It was 2021. And my 2-year-old was running in the background. And I was welcomed onto the screen at CTI. And I just felt like I was home. I felt like all the things I'd ever done in my life, from the time I was a little girl till that moment, I was coaching. I had been coaching when I was around a campfire at 8 years old with my friends, asking, what's the big picture vision of your life? Or when I was with my friends, drinking at a bar, I'd be like, tell me about your limiting beliefs. It all came together and made sense that my whole life I had been coaching and I was a coach. And being in the presence of other coaches really evoked this feeling of coming home to myself. I think the impact that coaching's had on me is everything. Every part of my life has changed. I question all of my beliefs. I don't see limits anymore. And when before coaching, I had a very clear path and trajectory, I'd say almost like tunnel vision. This is my life. This is where I'm going. And as if coaching took away the tunnel, and anything is possible for me now. I can do what I want and I can follow my desires. And it's also changed the relationship to myself because I fully understand who I am now, what I stand for, and a really authentic confidence. Where before I knew there was a lot of limiting beliefs that were running me, and that led to strained relationships or not fully understanding certain people. But now I feel like I'm walking the world a completely different person being a coach. So when I stepped away from this, I guess conventional path that was paved for me, when I stepped away from it, it was really hard. It was hard to step away from something that was almost set for me, like set in stone, and to say, this isn't for me. This life isn't for me. It was hard to pull away from that. All the inner critics and saboteurs were like, danger, danger, danger. Don't do this. It's scary. It's weird. You're creating a business that doesn't exist and nobody's heard of before. And I had to truly reinvent myself. I remember very distinctly thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to show up in social media? How am I going to present myself to the world? And I would view it kind of like bashfully. I'd be like, yeah, I'm just kind of like starting this business and I'm doing this thing called coaching. And everyone would be like, life coaching? And I'd be like, well, sort of, but I had to like really find my flow and my confidence because that journey was a hard one. And I would call that journey a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest, because I was so excited about this new thing and that was totally lighting me up. I could not wait to bring it to clients. I couldn't believe the impact I was seeing on myself. But then I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, okay, what am I doing? Well, how do I do this? How do I run this business? How does this even work?" Oh, back up again when I would coach a client. Oh, that session was unbelievable. And I would say that first year really felt like a roller coaster. I was making this transition of who I once was to who I am. So the transformation I've seen in my clients is quite cool. As I've made my own transformation, I would say we kind of like grow in tandem. I started coaching mom entrepreneurs because that's who I was. And I was really resonant with moms and entrepreneurs being in my own journey. And two of those clients that I started at the very beginning are still my clients. And one of them, I'll give an example. She is a local jewelry maker. And so she would make this is actually her work. It's a little fingerprint of my 10-month-old son when he was 10. And on the other side, it's my 2-year-old. So she does like imprint jewelry. And at the time when we met, she was playing really small. She was making like little single pieces and rings and just out of a local workshop. Through our time together, we really moved through her experience of motherhood and how heavy and important that role was for her through coaching. She really reconnected to her confidence, which we discovered was her own flow. She's like water is her leader within. So she really connected to this flow of water. And she ended up starting to make pieces that were like water. They were edgy and different and authentic. And I get chills thinking about her work. It transformed to more creative. And then not only that, she started to think really big. She was just getting by with, small rings and she was exhausting herself. Through coaching, she recognized that she needed to go a little bit bigger and invest in a casting tool, which helped her mass produce some of her pieces. And then we went even bigger and she recognized she wanted to design engagement rings and wedding jewelry. And this was the game changer. So now my client, we're 2.5 years into working together. Her specialty is designing custom wedding rings that are raw and rare. She does right now, I think she has like 10 inquiries. And it's led her to really hyper focus her attention on her creative endeavors, but also create stability in her business, freedom of time for her and her family. And also, she was able to leave a relationship that wasn't serving her through that. So, as she's growing and expanding, she's getting rid of things that don't serve her anymore. So, that's an example of one transformation a client I've had at the beginning. And through this process of coaching, I keep evolving and I keep thinking, what do I want? And what ended up happening was really ironic because I was working in a corporate ski resort company and I thought, corporate's not for me. I don't want to work with organizations. I'm done. But funnily enough, I kept getting this like calling to like, "Hey, Courtney, will you come facilitate a workshop for us? We loved what you did before. Hey, Courtney, would you design some learning?" And I just got really curious about that. Instead of pushing it away, coaching really helped open me up to say, what is this? So I got really curious. And what ended up happening was I started designing learning for local organizations and facilitating team building workshops and leadership development and loving it, just absolutely loving it. So that's what I do as well, is I'm creating these experiences for organizations to bring back their humanity, find their authentic connection, and connect to this bigger picture vision of themselves from that leader within. So it's been incredibly powerful. And I will say too, when I speak about clients, the funniest thing also happened is a lot of coaches are drawn to me. Like I kept getting booked these meetings with coaches that just wanted to chat and say, "Hey Court, like I'm so curious what you're up to. Like I see kind of what you're posting online or tell me about your journey." And through that experience, in building my own business, I also hired a coach who correctly said, "Well, why don't you coach them? Why don't you coach these coaches? They're drawn to you." And thus started a whole new phase of my business where I support coaches to grow and build their businesses and help support them to work with organizations using all my strengths and skills and expertise from the past in corporate and designing learning. I'm helping other coaches now do the same. And it's so fulfilling because I get to allow them to go on the same journey that I've been on in total transformation and find a career that's also really supportive for them, both financially, but also within their own fulfillment. They feel more fulfilled. My immediate relationship, so my husband and my children, at the start, where my husband really had to step in was just saying, "You've got this. You've got this. He's been my biggest cheerleader. Ooh, I might get emotional talking about my husband. He's my biggest cheerleader, my biggest support system. Without him saying, Courtney, you've got skill, you've got talent, you've got passion, go for it. Like, you can do this, was everything that I needed to start and move forward. And to be totally transparent, I'm funding myself. This whole journey of coaching and starting my business was really scary because I didn't have a safety net. No one was supporting me financially. But for him to look me in the eye and be like, you're gonna figure this out. I know you will, was like, I can't even put to words how meaningful that was for me. And I think for him, just watching me be so fulfilled and lit up from coaching, he knew. He knew. He's like, the energy you have when you're coaching and building this business versus the energy you had when you were working in the organization, you're a different person. And I want you to keep being in that energy. And the other relationships in my life, my friends, an unexpected thing happened with my friends. Some of my friends, my relationships got stronger, like incredibly stronger. And they're like, you are a different person. The way you speak about yourself, how you unarguably question all of your beliefs and your thoughts, you're more open-minded. That's been incredible. So some relationships, it's absolutely strengthened and bonded us. I've found more friends through CTI, other coaches. I really connect with coaches, so I found a whole new community. At the same time, what I noticed is some friendships did fall away. And this was hard for me as I started coaching and questioning my beliefs. The people in my life that weren't doing the same and weren't growing, we butted heads. And it was so easy for me to see how somebody was not, how do I put this, was limiting themselves in their life. It was so easy for me to see. And I noticed anything I would say wouldn't help. They needed to go on their own journey. And so I did have to let some friendships fade away. And that was really hard as I continued to grow. The biggest gift that coaching gives to me is freedom of my time and feeling wholeheartedly fulfilled every day. I'm connecting to my heart right now, which I didn't do before coaching, and I can hear and feel my heart. I know when it's speaking to me. I know what my truth is. And I'm so deeply connected to who I am. And it's been the most powerful experience. So what it means to me to be the CPCC, for me, it feels like I made it. The journey of becoming a coach was a long one and worth every second, but to finally have that CPCC for me is I've made it. I'm doing it. I've completed this course, this education, the supervisory sessions, and it gave me the confidence to go out in the world and assert myself as an authority, as someone who knows what they're doing. And that's been really important for me to have that sense of security and confidence. So what I've observed is that the coaching industry is highly unregulated. And there's varying degrees of education and experience that coaches do have. And yes, when I meet new clients or when I talk about what I do, it's very apparent to people the certification in that I've had to go through a lengthy education as well as training, as well as a number of coaching hours that people can always tell that I've done that by way of I do experience coaching sessions when I first meet somebody, and I always get the feedback that, wow, that blew my mind. Like they're speechless. I can't even describe what I just experienced. I've never experienced something like that. I felt like I was out of my body, but in my body at the same time. And what I will say is the CPCC gave me the confidence to have a strategy and a structure to be able to coach. But not only that, it gave me the space to connect to my authentic knowing in my heart. So I feel loaded with confidence as well as practical tools and strategies to be able to execute on any client session after completing the CPCC. And clients can see that and they can feel that through working with me, whether it's in one session or simply how I talk about coaching. I what CPCC gave me also was a way to articulate myself, because we get that question a lot in coaching, like, oh, are you a life coach? And absolutely, you can be a life coach, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let me tell you a little bit more about what coaching is and the impact it can have. So I feel like it also gave me the tools to be able to communicate that in a confident way, so I could get across to people what it is I do, as well as the ability to do it and the tools to do that. If I could describe the power of coaching in one or two sentences, for me, it would be coming home to myself. So if I could sum up coactive in one word, it would be transformational. And I know it sounds cliche, but the person I am today is not the same person I was 2 years ago when I first started this journey. And an example of that is when I was sitting around the dinner table with my husband, and he looks at me in kind of an inquisitive way, and he's like, can you believe the stuff that you're doing? Like, can you believe it? Like who you are right now? Just in total awe of like, I almost saw myself as like the goddess in his eyes, the goddess that's just taken life by the horns and not afraid of anything, challenging every belief, trailblazing and innovating in an industry and in a business that didn't even exist, and also scaling it to the degree in which I am. He's like, can you even believe this is who you are today? Like, that is the gift that Coactive gave me, was like permission to be myself, permission to learn, permission to be transformed, is what Coactive gave me. If I could give advice to somebody who's just starting coaching, it would be trust the process and slow down. When I first started, I was so excited to get going. I couldn't take in the information fast enough, and I couldn't stop thinking about what was possible, that I forgot to be in this moment. In this moment as the learner, in this moment, someone who's getting new skills, meeting new friends and connections. I would say slow down, trust the process, and connect to your cohorts. The cohorts that I was with, I did Coactive in a virtual setting over COVID. I am still connected to those coaches. I am collaborating with those coaches, creating amazing experiences for clients. So slow down, connect to the people around you, and trust the process.